So which way is that facing?
This faces north.
Okay.
So when the wind comes directly from the north, it's like Canadian air. It smells like.
Finance and Personnel Committee on July 18th, 2016. Roll call.
Alder Wood.
Here.
Council President Spate.
Here.
And Alder Bussey is excused.
Okay. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes from the June 20th meeting?
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. There are no appearances tonight. We'll move on to unfinished business. Discussion of hiring for a code enforcement officer position.
Well, I was hoping to have an action item tonight, but nothing seems to get done in July because of so many vacations. So I will just give you a brief update. One of the things that we are looking at for hiring the position is, as we have before, a separate staff person at 16 hours per week, which is what this committee was recommending. And Leah and Marty and I went over to McFarland and met with them to see what their thoughts were as far as future staffing levels go, since we share a building inspector and share those hours. And they actually had a few good ideas for us. They said that they would check to see if they had any fire or EMS employees that might be interested in the position, which is how we got our code inspector here last time, and we don't apparently have anyone interested at this time currently on staff. And they had also suggested getting a paid intern for maybe a building program like MATC that we could then groom for building inspection services in the future if that person works out. According to our building inspector, there's just nobody in the ranks coming up to be building inspector in the next few years, and we're probably going to have mass retirements in the region within the next 5 years. So again, in a year we would be having this conversation, and maybe if we have best case scenario, we can groom somebody to take over that position, starting with code inspection and some building inspection support. Unfortunately, the person at McFarland who had a contact at MATC was on vacation, so we weren't able to make contact. So that's why I don't have a firm answer for you. But I guess that's what we're looking for at this time. I was hoping we could go forward with an advertisement or so forth. But unless you guys have any other comments, we'll just keep proceeding in that direction and trying to get somebody on board and maybe see if we could get someone who might be interested in taking over building inspection services in the future. So.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yep.
Thank you for that update. So we'll move on to item 6A, new business, consideration of resolution 16-7-2109, accepting the Public Service Commission water rate increase.
I will talk about that. It's very quick presentation. It's about 4 or 5 slides just to highlight what I'm going to be talking about here. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to stand up there and talk about at the same time.
Sure.
We do this. So I got pages numbered, so just so basically, I just want to start back. Last year, at the end of last year, we talked about a water rate increase. The reason why, on page 2, is kind of the fiscal note we used there, why we were applying for a water rate increase. There was 4 main reasons. The reason why we did it was to meet our debt coverage requirements that we have to meet. When you borrow for water revenue bonds, there's a certain debt requirement you have to meet. And we needed to meet that. We did lose the largest water user in 2014, so it was kind of shifting of the who's using the water and how much we need to water we needed, so we need to have them look at it. And also, since our last water rate increase, we spent roughly $3.5 million in replace infrastructure and other capital equipment. This was for 16, but we're going to spend another $500,000, so would have been $4 million since our last water increase of capital projects. So for those reasons, the council approved to apply for a water rate increase. One of the things the council wanted when we were looking at that was to look at conservation rates for non-residential users. Currently, we have a conservation rate for residential users, which is equivalent to an inclining rate structure, which is more water you use, the higher charge you get. And currently, right now, we have a declining rate structure for commercial and non-residentials. So that was one of the things to look at, was can the PSC do two options for us? One, with the current standard, two, with the conservation rates for non-residentials. So we did that, applied. Took a little bit longer than probably should have, just because there was some transition with Pat left, and then once they turned it in, we knew all the full numbers, so they kind of wanted me to go back and put the actuals numbers in. And it was basically all the actual numbers from 2015. So I had to redo that, so it took a little bit of time. So it's come a little bit, probably a month or two later than it probably should have been when we originally did it, but just because of some timing with certain things we needed. So overall, if you go to page 3 is actually the current rate structure. Page 4 is the first proposal. What the PSC is recommending overall is a 15% increase, which is equivalent to, since our last rate case, about 3% per year. So if we would increase our rates over the last 5 years by 3%, roughly would have been where we're at right now, what they're proposing. Like I said, the last rate case was 2011. Like I said, once we submitted to the PSC, they did come back with two rate structures. So there is going to be the one current structure and then the one with the commercial conservation rates. If you want to look at page 4, just kind of hit on that just really quick. As you can see on page 4, this is the cost of service and it says proposed rates. You see this on both proposals. But the increase over present rates, you see at the very bottom, the total is 15%. That's the overall increase. If you kind of look at each different categories, some of them are higher than the 15%. The biggest reason is public fire protection. The way we structure our public fire protection, basically what it is we take what the revenues should be, determine what the cost of providing public fire protection is. And ours is the only one in the state that uses this method. We determined the last water rate case. We take the assessed value, we get a rate per thousand based on your land improvements. So the revenue number doesn't change, but it's going to fluctuate because some people's land improvements went up or down over the last 5 years. So as you can see, the cost of service and the revenue they need to provide that, the number doesn't change at all. That's why there's a zero increase in there. To get that 15%, it is increase in the other customer classes based on the users. So that's why you look at the 15%, it's because there was zero increase in the public fire, because the method we use and the fact that cover our costs for public fire protection stayed the same with that method.
Is that assessed with the property tax, since
No.
it's tied to a value of?
It's not. It's kind of like a property tax mill rate. It's basically what it ends up. We get a mill rate, but instead of being on your tax bill, it's part of your utility bill. We took it off before I was here. They took it off over about 15, 20 years ago.
Okay.
But that's actually what it is. It's basically a mill rate.
Okay.
We're charging everybody based on their land improvement, not their land improvement. So this 15% overall is going to be the same for both methods. So just so people are watching, here's our current rate structure. Residential, 2.4 for the first 10 units. Cubic units, 2.85 for the next 15 cubic units. So So anything after that, the residential is 3.75 over the combined 25 units. Non-residential, as you see, it's a little bit different. So it's the first 70 units are charged at 2.55 per cubic unit used. For the next 430, it's 2.4, and anything over 500 is $1.85 per cubic unit. So here's the proposal of number one, which is the same structure, cost structure as what we've been using. So if you go on page 6, it kind of shows that too in PSC form. So basically, as you can see, we went from 2.4 to 2.97 for the first 10 units. This is residential, and then we went from 2.85 for 15 units to 3.5, and then anything over that, 3.75 to 4.5. And in residential, as you can see, for the first 70, it's $3. 430 units, the next 430 units is 2.8, and then $500 or next 500 units, anything over 500 units is 2.25. So that's the same exact structure as we've been using. So that was one of the design for us. This next page I have, which would be equal to page 10. And this is right straight for the PSC. What the PSC told me when I was working with this was a little bit of delay is we cannot have a inclining rate structure for commercial. They consider that discrimination based on, because commercials are all different sizes, and you're charging a smaller one. You're basically affecting the biggest one. You're discriminating against the bigger commercial units than you are against the smaller commercial units. So they say that's unfair to those large commercial businesses, not users, but just businesses. So they figure that's, they told me that's unfair. So what they said they could do, and this is ways a lot of people are doing for conservation rates for non-residential is, so I'm going to go through this, is residential stayed exactly the same. There's no changes from what was proposed in that first one. So those numbers stayed exactly the same. Non-residential class customers. These are your industrial customers and your commercial customers. What they're saying is, we'll just charge everybody the same, 2.7 per user. We won't have an inclining. So the more water you use, you're not going to get a savings for that. You're just going to use 2.7 for every unit used. So there's going to be no distinguish between that. The next one they did break out, new thing now you have to break out is multifamily, which are basically large apartment complexes, condos that don't have their separate buildings. Some condos have their own units, have their own water meters. Condos that have like 1 meter, so to separate it all. That's what these are, like Trace, Frostwoods and things like that, senior housing. So they charge theirs, they determine it's $3.10 per unit used. They believe that's because it's more still with the residential. It's still kind of, they consider more residential. So they think that's a little bit higher than they would a non-residential customer. So those are, they would be 3.1 per unit used. So that's the difference between the two different proposals. So if you go to page 12, and I'm going to show you kind of how this all affects each different categories based on these proposals. So the resident, page 12, I just did small users. One step back, we go to page 11, and then page 11 and page 7. The PSC did this report for us. They looked at each different categories, and they did comparisons from the old and new. But I just kind of broke out a little bit farther so people can see what type of who falls in that category and how we determine these numbers. So the residential, you see for a small user, these would be the less 10 or less units used. These are typically 1 or 2 households, people in a household there. Current rate, when I said meter charge, you get your standard meter charge, so that's in there. The usage, I used 8. This matches the PSC, they used 8 too, just want to show how they match up. Current need to pay $40.20. Since both proposal 1 and 2 are exactly the same, that would increase a little over $10 to $50.76. So then an average user, which the PSC was looking at the average user, and I actually used someone I know that has 3 kids and 5 people in the household. So this is actually a couple bills I know that were consistent. So I used that. 18 units. These are more like kids with parents with younger kids. So this would be the increase. These are per quarter. So the increase is whatever the difference, the $84.70 difference between 67. You times that by 4 would be your annual increase for that. And I just show the difference in larger users just so you know who they usually are. They're usually people with pools, indoor or outdoor pools, or people who water a lot during the summertime, and then people who have leaks. So just kind of comparisons there. Just kind of want to show the commercial, page 13. This is where you'll see kind of 2 different proposals and how they. I put commercial small users. These are more like 12 units. This is very small stores or small business offices. So you can see that current rate would have been $50.60. The proposed option 1 is the inclining. So they actually would pay more than this proposal number 2.
Well, it's still declining, right?
Yeah, the proposal number 1 is declining, and
Right.
proposal 2 is just one flat sheet
Right.
fee for each unit used. The next one is just showing commonly what restaurants are. I kind of picked a couple of restaurants to make sure this is pretty consistent. You can see the difference between the 2 different proposal 1 and 2. Commercial use are large retail. These are some of our bigger box stores that we have. As you can see, the difference between 1 and 2 again, and then I go to commercial user, which is one of our largest users that we have, and kind of see the difference again from 1 and 2. I have on the total for the commercial user, largest user, I have 535 cubic feet. It actually should be, I forgot to add it, it's 994, just so you're adding them all up. It should have been 994, not 535. But as you can see the difference, the larger you use, the larger units, as you can tell, the option 2, they pay a little bit more than option 1. It's larger retail and restaurants, you pay a little bit more in option 1, a little less in option 2. So there is, like I said, it's kind of that conservation. The more you use, kind of higher the rates there. So I looked at that, and then I did a multifamily because that's where that higher rate was, the $3.1 per unit used. And I kind of did 3 different types: multifamily, large apartments, using option 1, and option 2. That's multifamily large apartments. These would be 5, 8 units. The second one, multifamily large apartments. Again, that's more like your larger apartment buildings, like some of the newer ones that just built. And then the multifamily large complexes, they're like the larger senior housing type facilities. So you can kind of see the difference between the 2 options. And then I just included on 15 and 16 just for your purposes you're looking. So this is 2015, page 15, the 2015 water usage data. So this basically shows for residential how many units were used in the first 10, the next 15, and anything over 25. You basically take the 2 zeros off. That's where we get those numbers. And then same with multifamily and commercial and public authority. So you can see kind of if you're using a lot of water, where a lot of the gaps are, kind of comparing those different scenarios, that's where PSC used this information to in more detail. And then page 16, these are just our meters, sizing meters and different categories. It's, I don't know, just like residential. Most of them have the small meters. Multifamily have bigger meters. Because there's bigger buildings, 3 inches and 11 inches, or 3 inches and the 2 inches. Commercial, we have a lot of small users, 3/4, 1 users. So kind of see what users they are and where they fall into which category. So I guess my thing is, and this is just the first read, so I want to get you guys' opinion where you want to go from here, what additional information you'll need for the next meeting. From there on out, any questions? I'll be giving the same thing at the council tonight.
Do you have a recommendation?
No, I looked at both scenarios. Some benefit different sizes, some benefit the other sizes. I think if you're really going to go conservation rates, and that's what PSC is kind of proposing, that second one. I mean, I think that's the way to go. I mean, that's what we're looking. But I mean, I guess that'd be just kind of based on our history and what our goal is for conservation of water. But, the first rate does work for us too. I mean, it's really not very few complaints. So.
Where is the best place to look for a clear comparison? I guess that would be page 4 for the.
So,
I've gotten lost in the numbers initially,
okay.
but
So page 3 is our current rates.
right.
Page 4 is just how the PSC determined. They basically use this information to develop their rate structure. So page 4 is just for the first proposal. They got the 15%, but they shows the increase in the different categories, how they did their overall increases for residentials and stuff like that. So if you want to compare, like page 6 would be, if you're looking at page 6, the volume charges, or what are you going to be comparing, I guess, compared to page 3. That's proposal number 1. And then proposal number 2 is on page 10, so the rate volume charges are there. That's a good question. I can always put that for the next one, is kind of put all 3 of them on the same page.
That would be helpful. I mean, that
Yeah.
was the toughest thing for me. I got completely lost
Yeah.
in this previously.
That's
and,
good. That's good. I actually should have did that first time.
I mean, so
Maybe I can put that together.
I was fixated on page 4 initially, and it struck me as unfair that residential and multifamily were taking quite a bigger percentage hit than commercial, though it's not as extreme as it seems.
Right.
But then having that data compared, so pages 4 and 8, that's interesting data to compare side by side.
Sure.
But it's a little hard.
Yeah, right. So you rip them apart and kind of see that makes it kind of yeah.
Yeah.
I can put those on next time on different sheets.
Yeah, that would be great.
When do we, I assume PSC then is waiting for us to let them know what our choice is. What's their time?
What I told them is I needed to bring it to you guys first, and then I'd get back to them. Basically, once we approve it, we have to do like a public hearing and all that information for the public. So we really need to approve it by end of technically. If you go past I think it's September, then you have to redo it all over again.
No.
So
Okay.
that would be
Yeah.
the deadline.
Right.
Because then they want the new data again for 16, so that becomes an issue. But I told them I needed for you guys to look at and digest those 2 different proposals.
Mark, would it be accurate to say that our choices are either proposal 1, proposal 2, or neither? Or is it appropriate for the council to suggest tweaking of these rates? And I just asked that question,
Yeah.
given the fact that PSC
Yeah,
has
you-
a certain
Yeah, I mean,
power.
these are their, they go through and they do all their analysis. They have their rate people do it. What if they've told me sometimes I know they do is they let you implement it over 2 years, or they don't like to wait over 3 years, but sometimes they'll let you recommend something different. But they really like to. I mean, the way ours is structured, we'd have to have them go back and say, well, no, we want a different rate increase or different structure. So they have to go back and do their analysis again. Really, the only thing we could do is, implement it over 2 years instead of 1. But that'd be the only thing other than if you want to do 10%, and they can look at it and see what that analysis would be. And they would come back with another rate structure, based on these proposals.
So would 15% being the current rate increase be the ceiling?
Yes, and that's to cover our capital and operating.
Okay.
And what that is too, like I mentioned, it's been 5 years, so the way I looked at it is 3% over per year to get to the 15.
Okay, anything
Okay.
further? All right,
Nope.
thank you, Mark. We will now move on to item 6B, update on status of Fire Union International Association of Firefighters Local 311 Health Insurance Opt-out Grievance.
In the interest of time, we can have this really brief. I don't know what's necessary to go into a closed session tonight, but we did update as a staff this morning, and we will be meeting at the end of July on kind of strategizing for how we will handle the outcome of the WERC arbitration case, which we lost. But we will be negotiating new agreements with police and fire, so at the end of July, we'll meet and kind of come up with a strategy of how we will go forward. So we don't have quite too much to report yet, other than we'll be working on it.
Okay.
We'll report back.
And are we okay with our timeline for approval of these items? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, we kind of lost a lot of July with just, we can't seem to get everybody together in one meeting until the end of July, so.
Okay.
Yeah, we weren't able to move too fast on it, so.
Okay, so I believe then that takes care of the next couple of items on the agenda under new business. And we'll move on to item 7, acceptance of the general fund accounts payable checks dated June 17th to July 14th.
I don't know if you want me to go through these. We've got a couple minutes here.
That's a normal procedure.
Yeah. A lot of the stuff is going to be everyday activity, and also a lot related to the pool. The pool has been pretty busy. Just a couple things. I was going to hit on some Century, page 3, Century Fence Company, the Southtown epoxy pavement. That's part of our 2016 capital. It was just completed. Page 7, just so you know, we do try to do stuff in-house too. So Jones Concrete Products. This is stuff done by the Public Works for projects they're working on, so they order concrete, and they have one guy who's actually really good at it and does a lot of the concrete work for us. So that does save us some money. Like I said, page 8, just to kind of hit on Menards, Monona. I just like to just kind of hit it since you're here first time. Is we like to use local, so we do use Menards and a lot of the local different companies the best we can. Page 13 is at the end. Here is our service Bill Cole's time for the month of May. Just like to see what areas he's been working on for us. Page 14. So there's a couple of numbers cut off, last three digits. That is our purchase, and now we're the owner of that building. Page 17, CGC, I'm just going to hit on one of them. Some testing, Schluter Park. Drax on the very bottom. They're on their way. They're moving along pretty quickly. So just kind of hitting on that. Right above that too, Burke is our dump truck equipment's body. That was actually part of the capital budget. Page 19, Harmony Construction Management, Community Center, bar remodel, which was part of the capital budget. Page 21 is going to talk about really quick Johnson's Tree and Shrub. It's tree removal, but he also is our storm pickup, so he'll be, I think they're getting out today or tomorrow. They'll be out picking all that stuff up. If anybody has any questions, it's kind of a lot of it is dealing with just everyday stuff, especially with Jake and his pool stuff.
Okay.
Anything else? I'm sorry. I don't have
That's
anything
fine.
else.
Doug, any concerns?
Nope.
All right, very good. Hearing none, I will accept a motion for adjournment.
There needs to be a motion on accepting the accounts payable.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll move to accept the accounts payable.
I'll second that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. The accounts are accepted. Thank you, Joan. I will now entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move adjournment.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned. We will start council in 5 minutes.
Try to hit the gavel.
Go.